It's a desire we all share, to lead a rich, fulfilling, happy life. But you can't always get what you want.
Is happiness an experience that comes and goes, or is it a state that you can live in for long periods of time? I don't know.
This emotional life is a roller coaster, taking us from the heights of ecstasy to the depths of despair and every place between.
All emotions have a role in a healthy life. We're not automatons.
I'm Dan Gilbert, and in this series, I'm going to introduce you to everyday people who are searching for happiness, as well as to the scientists and clinicians who are trying to help them find it.
What I've taken away is the resilience of the human spirit. It is just amazing what we can go through and be okay.
I thought I was going crazy.
The dreams, the nightmares.
But I'm not letting it beat me. What more can I say? I'm a happy camper.
We'll see how our greatest source of happiness lies in the people around us.
A basic need for human beings is love, is companionship.
We'll explore the obstacles to happiness, emotions such as fear, sadness, and anger.
Have I lost it to the point where I did feel like I've lost it? Yeah.
I went through like 6 or 7 years of real depression. I just was never quite given the right pill.
But next, we'll see what happiness is, what causes it, and why we look for it in all the wrong places.
I won the lottery, but being happy / content takes work.
I used to think that things would make me happy. More money, success. I'm realizing now that that's not the fact. Happiness comes from within, and happiness comes from experiences that we have with people that we love.
Coming up, rethinking happiness on This Emotional Life. Everybody wants happiness. It's a universal human desire. But it's a desire not easily satisfied. We search without finding it, and when we do find it, it doesn't seem to last very long.
Why is it that it is so difficult for us to hold on to contentment? And why are we so fleeting, and why are we so fickle? Why is it that one day the things that make us happy, the next day bring us misery?
Happiness, get over yourself. What happiness? You know, life is going to be always challenging. It's always going to be a pain, so get over it.
I don't think it's that much of a mystery. If you don't have a job that you like, and you're not having sex, you're just not going to be happy.
I think happiness is a temporary state, but it's a juicy one.
You have to train your mind to recall the simple successes you can have.
Turn on the television, surf the web, visit a bookstore, and you'll see that there's no shortage of people offering advice about happiness.
Success University. Gonna be fun, y'all.
All my needs, desires, and goals.
They're all part of a large and growing business known as the self-help industry.
The liberation from the horizontal image.
This industry may or may not have made anyone happy, but it's definitely made some people very rich. Last year, Americans spent about $10 billion on self-help.
You're in the preferred section.
Much of that money was brought in by conferences like this one, run by Hay House, a leading self-help publisher. Hay House sells books and DVDs on everything from diet and personal fitness to fairy magic and angel therapy.
Wow. There's a lot of money to be spent here.
Yes, there is.
Yes. How much money are you going to spend here?
Well, we didn't even make it around the tables, but it looks like we're going to be spending a lot. Stuff looks great.
The desire for happiness drives different people toward different things. Some have come here hoping to lose weight. Some are hoping to find a new partner, a new career, or a whole new view of the universe.
Unbelievably, amazingly amazing, but mind over body connection.
Getting a better job, love,
Yep,
relationships,
all the
that
good
kind
things
of
in
stuff.
life. But some people have come here with very serious problems, and they may not be in the right place. Many have been drawn by Louise Hay, the founder of Hay House. She claims to have cured herself of cancer through positive thinking and other self-help techniques, and she tells others that they can do it too. Although her claims have never been medically verified, she's been a guest on Oprah, and her memoir, Heal Your Life, has sold over 35 million copies, making her one of the best-selling authors of all time.
Please join me in welcoming Louise Hay.
I choose the thoughts that make me feel good. And if you will be very careful about the thoughts you think, that you choose to think.
Hay is right when she says that our thoughts affect our feelings and that we have some control over the thoughts we think.
Life loves you. I love you. Do you love you? That's the important thing. Thank you. Thank you. I accept. I do. You're damn right.
But Hay also believes that thoughts are the cause of all misfortunes.
Because remember, somebody who has depression is choosing thoughts that make them feel rotten.
That by thinking the wrong way, we can give ourselves cancer or AIDS or depression, cause cars to hit us, or make ourselves the target of a terrorist attack.
And when I became 80, I decided that it was going to be the best decade of my entire life. And it is. I'm 82.
As I go through your book, I see all sorts of maladies and various kinds of thoughts that you say can cause them. Alzheimer's is an inability to face life, leprosy, inability to handle life at all.
Oh, you're picking the fun ones. People who have Alzheimer's are really removing themselves from life completely.
How do you know? How do you know what you're saying is
my
right?
inner ding.
Your inner ding?
My inner ding.
Ding?
It speaks
Okay.
to me, yes. It feels right or it doesn't feel right. Happiness is choosing thoughts that make you feel good. It's really very simple.
I hear you saying that even if there were no proof for what you believed, or even if there was scientific evidence against it.
Oh, I don't believe in scientific evidence. I really don't. And science is fairly new. It hasn't been around that long. We think it's such a big deal, but it's, you know, it's just a way of looking at life.
But you're telling it to millions of people, and you're telling them it's right for them, too.
I'm telling them what's right for me. My inner ding, that's all I can say.
You know what? Science is fairly new. But when we want to know what causes stars to explode or butterflies to migrate, we rely on scientific evidence rather than our inner ding. So why not do the same thing to find out what causes human happiness?
For thousands of years, philosophers were asking about happiness and talking about happiness, but without any data. And only probably in the last 30 or 40 years have we actually collected scientific data, rigorous data, measured happiness, and started to begin to see what is it that leads to happiness.
Psychologist Ed Diener is a pioneer in the study of happiness. Since 1980, he and his collaborators have crossed the globe to measure it, surveying diverse communities from the Maasai tribe in Africa to the Inuit of northern Canada, to the Amish of rural Pennsylvania, and many, many others. And the methods Diener uses are as diverse as his subjects.
In happiness research, we ask people how happy they are on a 1 to 10 scale. We also look at brain waves. You can look at hormones like cortisol that reflect stress, for example. You can also ask family and friends how happy that person is, because family and friends see how happy they say they are and how happy they act in everyday lives.
Diener has gathered data on nearly 250,000 people and has found that the happy ones have better health, better relationships, better sex lives, better careers, and better just about everything else.
We think that's an evolutionary thing. And the people who are happy probably out-achieve the other people and out-reproduce them, and there's more of us around now.
Diener's findings have been confirmed by psychologists, neuroscientists, and economists around the world. We now know a great deal about what actually makes people happy, and it isn't always what we think.
What does happiness mean to you? I'm a firm believer in money is happiness, okay? I have to be honest.
With my children, because I love my children.
I like my summer camp the best.
Is that the best? That makes you happy? What about money? Do you think money makes people happy?
Absolutely.
Yeah? And the more the better?
For me, especially, the more the better.
Guess what? Money does cause happiness. On average, the more money people have, the happier they tend to be. So money, yes. Marriage, probably. Children, not so much. What science is teaching us about these and many other things is that they are related to happiness, but not necessarily in the way you might think.
I grew up in the South Bronx. We had every gang banger, the Savage Skulls and the Bloods and the this and the that. It was difficult to survive, and I was always one paycheck away from being homeless. So, for 2.5 years, every week, regardless of what the jackpot was, I would go in and just play the lottery.
Falcon won $45 million. He is New York's single largest winner ever. Today, the former starving artist said he'll take his winnings and begin his dream performance, a one-man show he calls A Short Puerto Rican Guy Sings Songs of Angst.
And now I can afford to rent out a theater and do it the way I want to do it. I'm a performance artist. Usually people are always telling me what it is I should be doing, and I shouldn't be doing that, and I should be doing this, and now I'm just going to do it my way. Flash! Bam! Wonderful you came by!
Life is change, and money is going to change you. I moved into a beautiful building, an uber luxury apartment in an uber luxury building. I'm getting all the things that I dreamt of getting. Anything Italian is a great pleasure. It applies to so many things. The art, the clothing, all the good stuff is from Italy. It just is, you know. It's the fun of collecting, and I've always been a collector.
When people are asked what would most improve their lives, they almost always say more money. But are they right?
We've done a lot of research on money and happiness over the last couple decades, and what we find is coming out of poverty increases your happiness. So if you take somebody who wins a lottery and they were in financial trouble, they had no money, it could make a significant difference to their happiness. Now, on the other hand, what if the richest man in the world wins a 100 million lottery? And now instead of having 50 billion, he has 50 billion and 100 million. It's nothing. So it really does make a difference where you start in terms of what kind of impact money will make.
When it comes to happiness, every dollar you earn buys just a little bit less than the last one. Of course, if money doesn't make you happy, then you just might not be spending it right.
What we know about lottery winners is that when they make changes in their life and lose their friends, when they make changes in their life and misspend money on drugs and so forth, from a number of cases we know that that's going to make you unhappy. On the other hand, some people who use their money correctly, and they use their money to help their family, they use their money to help charity, those kind of people can be happier.
The thought came to me, oh my goodness, I'll be able to, send my niece and nephew to college, be able to pay for college. And I got weak in the knees. I never would have thought I'd be able to give them anything but, flying kites and an occasional electrified train or something. I mean, here's the idea that they can go to college, at any college. Oh, did the new money strain any relationships? Yes, quite a few. There were friends that I've had, all my friends were struggling painters, writers, singers, performance artists, whatever, and a few of them couldn't handle it. All of a sudden I became something else to them, and they just couldn't handle it. Why? I don't know, because we stopped speaking. But there are other friends who did hang around, and we're still friends.
Okay. He's very open,
You don't meet people that are as open as he is that often. John is the person you can laugh with, you can get serious with, you can argue with. And he's just a very stimulating, fun, interesting man.
Lois Mervis is one of John Falcone's oldest friends. She met him 20 years ago when both were struggling artists.
Wow, these are beautiful.
After John won the lottery, he hired Lois to help design and decorate his home.
Yeah, it needs to be longer or thicker or something just to be a little more presentational.
Well,
but it's a beautiful doorknob.
I don't know if I've ever told this to John. When my husband came home and told me that John had won the lottery, I got very concerned. I thought, oh, poor John, what a responsibility. Money is fun. Money gives you the freedom to do all kinds of things, but it's also a burden. And I've always impressed with John. I have to give him credit for that. He's a frivolous man, but he's not foolish. And I've watched him take this responsibility and have fun and yet be supportive to his family. So he's taken all of these elements that are quite often misused, and he's used them very well.
It takes a lot more work to be happy than it does to be unhappy, to be miserable. Misery is so easy. You can just go right into it. I'm unhappy about this. I don't like that color. I don't like scallops. I don't like it. You can just go right into it and just it snowballs. It snowballs. But being happy / content takes work. You have to work at it.
Anyone that tells you money doesn't bring happiness is an ass, is a fool.
I think what happens with more money is that there are more highs available. So there's more access to shopping, drugs, trips. There's more access to highs. So if we call that happiness, yeah, more available. But I don't call that happiness.
There is no key to happiness in my book. Except maybe, another $20 million film, which will never happen. So I can't look forward to great happiness ahead.
Money can't buy you fulfillment. It can sometimes buy you peace of mind, but it can't make you a happier person. And in some ways, knowing that makes you even less of a happy person.
But research shows this isn't necessarily true. So why do we all believe it? Well, as it turns out, people aren't very good at predicting what will and won't make them happy. In a recent experiment, researchers went to a health club and asked a simple question.
You're gonna live in the woods for 2 days and 2 nights. You can have food or water, but not both. Which would you rather have, food or water?
Food. I'd say food.
Okay, circle that.
Some of the people were asked this question before they worked out. Some were asked after they'd worked out. And when they were asked made a huge difference in how they answered. In fact, people were 50% more likely to say water if they'd just finished working out than if they were about to start.
Water.
Definitely water.
Okay.
Why? People were thirsty after exercising, and because they were thirsty now, they imagined being thirsty in the future. This is something our brains do all the time. When we think about how we'll feel in the future, our thoughts are shaped by how we feel in the present. It's as if our brains can't believe that we might feel differently later than we do now. That's not the only thing our brains can't quite believe. We all know that feelings inevitably change over time, that new love fades, that fresh wounds heal. And yet, when we imagine our future joys and our future sorrows, we tend not to think about how time will change them.
We sure do have the compelling intuition that somehow improving our life circumstances, our situations, whether it has to do with relationships or jobs, or health, that's going to make us happier. And the truth is that it does make us happier, but it doesn't make us happier for as long or as intensely as we think it would.
Psychologist Sonia Lubomirsky suggests that we're sadly mistaken when we expect that the things that make us happy for a day will make us happy for a lifetime.
It's a phenomenon called hedonic adaptation, which means that human beings basically are just incredibly good at getting used to, getting accustomed to adapting positive changes, especially in their lives, like the new car or the new house. And so that's one of the reasons that we keep sort of buying more stuff, is that we get the handbag that gives us a boost, it wears off, and then we get a new handbag.
Adaptation affects our experience of both good things and bad things in ways that we find difficult to anticipate. This is something my colleagues and I have been studying in the lab. And we'd be very happy to give you one as a gift for participating in the experiment. Which one would you like to have? In one experiment, we brought people into a room filled with art posters and offered to give them one. We told half of the participants that their decision was irreversible, and that once they'd made it, they could never change their minds. We told the other half that they could exchange the poster they chose for a different poster anytime they wanted. After making their choices, we asked both groups to rank their posters. And guess what? The people who knew they couldn't exchange their posters liked them more than the people who knew they could. Why? Because they had no choice. And so they adapted.
Television, it was celebrities, it was everything that 22-year-old graduating college kind of dreams of.
Then, in the blink of an eye, his life was forever transformed.
I had a summer rental, and I get to the house, and there was a pool, and it was a nice summer day, so naturally I wanted to go swimming. The second that I dove into the pool, my chin hit the bottom, and my head snapped back. In 1 millisecond, my life changed completely. I was told I was going to die 3 times that night. I couldn't breathe on my own. I was on a ventilator. I had a tube going down my mouth.
Francesco's doctors said that he'd never be able to move again.
I was depressed after the accident. That's a pretty big change of life, to then suddenly not be able to eat on your own, or not be able to brush your teeth, or to go to the bathroom. It's, there's a sense of embarrassment that comes with it at first. When you can't feed yourself, when you can't scratch your nose, it can drive you crazy. So I just wanted to fix it. I just wanted to, show them that I was gonna get better. I had no choice. I mean, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna sit? You're just gonna lay in bed and wither away? I didn't want to do that. I wanted to live. I started to feel better. It wasn't a specific day and it wasn't a specific time, but I realized that it wasn't about my injury anymore, and it wasn't about this metal frame that I sit on. It was more about, what do I want to do with my life?
After his accident, Francesco moved back in with his parents and began devoting long hours to a grueling routine of physical therapy.
I do very intensive physical therapy every day. I pedal this special bike with my arms and my legs. I sit up. I am relearning how to crawl. When I started to move my arms again, 6 months before, I can't move my arm. That sucks. But then moving it again makes you realize, oh my God, this is incredible. I can't believe I'm starting to use my wrist. I can't believe I'm moving my arm. I mean, you're moving your arm. When you don't have a spinal cord injury, you don't think about, God, I'm so thankful that I can breathe out of my left lung. I mean, you never think about that.
In the years since, Francesco has learned to move a lot more than just his body.
I started a skincare line called Clark's Botanicals. That started because of my injury. I lost the ability to sweat. It looked like I had specks of sand under each pore, and it was red, it was flaky, it was gray, it was sensitive, it looked like it was aging. I was kind of like, well, I've tried everything prescription, I've tried everything over the counter. I started to look at essential oils and botanical extracts. So I had these ugly little vials that I would use, and then my sister started using it, and then my mom started using it, and then my dad's patients started using it. And then I was kind of like, hold on, this isn't I'm just making this in the kitchen. I don't know what I'm doing. So it was very much an organic evolution of my injury.
Today, Francesco's products are sold all over the world, and he has the schedule of a busy CEO, running his own firm, writing a book, and working with the Christopher Reeve Foundation as an advocate for people with disabilities.
I'm very happy now. I love every aspect of my life, from work to my friends, to being with my family, to thinking about living an independent life. I'm still pretty much exactly who I was before. I laugh at the same jokes. I love the same movies. I have the same sense of curiosity, but I think that everything is more, I don't know. I'm just as stupid as I was before. It's just that I've learned more about myself.
The ability to bounce back is admirable, but it isn't unusual. People who suffer a wide range of traumas and tragedies tend to recover more quickly than they themselves would have predicted. Yes, they're sad, they're miserable, they're even devastated for a while. But studies show that most people end up being as happy or nearly as happy as they were before. Resilience isn't rare. In fact, it's very common.
There is some set point to happiness that you tend to return toward, and for some people it's very happy, and for other people it's mildly happy. And unfortunately for a few people it may not be happy. But the set point is good in the sense that when we have something terrible in our life happen to us, we get very depressed, we get less satisfied with our life, but slowly over time we come back toward that set point.
This process is critical to human happiness. But how do we do it? And why do some of us do it so much more easily than others? For more than 15 years, Dr. Dennis Charney has been studying people who've shown exceptional resilience after trauma. From survivors of natural disasters, to prisoners of war, to the firemen who responded when the World Trade Center was attacked on September 11th.
It was fascinating to deal with resilient individuals because when you met them, you looked at them and thought, well, how did you do this? You know, you start thinking, could I have done that? How did they do it?
One of Charney's most interesting subjects was Bob Shoemaker, a former Navy pilot.
I grew up on a farm in western Pennsylvania, and my parents were middle class, so I consider myself fairly average. But average people get thrown into extraordinary situations.
Bob's ordeal began in 1965 when he was assigned to combat duty in Vietnam. He'd just been married and had a son. Then suddenly, life as he knew it came to an end.
The mission I was on was just north of the demilitarized zone that separated North Vietnam from South Vietnam. We were really low, and I pulled out right over a flak site, and they managed to hit me in the tail section, and the plane flipped upside down, and I ejected, and the parachute fortunately opened, but opened only 35 feet above the ground, and so I broke my back as I landed. That was it, you know, they got me, they bound me, had handcuffs on me behind my back and marched me off.
For 8 years, Shoemaker was shuttled between North Vietnamese prisons, including the infamous Hanoi Hilton, where he was brutally tortured.
The really worst technique was what we call the rope treatment, where they would tie a rope from your handcuffs up over your shoulders and down to your feet, and they would tighten this thing up so that eventually your head would reach your feet. And you think it can't happen, you know, particularly when your knees are straight, but it was excruciating. And then they jammed an iron bar down my throat to keep me from screaming. So that was the technique that would get you to condemn your own grandmother if you had to.
The torture Shoemaker endured was not just physical. For almost 3 years, he was held in solitary confinement.
There were 11 of us in cells and no windows and a solitary light bulb hanging down that burned 24 hours a day.
To deal with his isolation, Shoemaker imagined the house that he would build for his young family if he ever returned.
I'm almost embarrassed to admit to you that there would be days when I would spend maybe 10 or 12 hours just thinking about how many bricks were in this house. I knew that there were, say, 5,227 nails in the thing and so many board feet of lumber. I'd spend a year and a half designing the perfect house, and then one day I'd say, well, what would happen if I moved the fireplace from this room to that room? It'd send me back to square one, and I'd redesign the thing.
Although Shoemaker was physically isolated from the other prisoners, to Together they created an ingenious form of communication.
We developed a tap code in which the alphabet was arranged in a square that had 5 rows and 5 columns. You'd say, that's the second row, second column, this is G. That's first row, second column B, and U is fourth row, fifth column is the U. So GBU is God bless you. So the tap code really kept our spirits alive, our hopes alive, our dreams. And so we transmitted things like French lessons through the wall and music lessons and how to fix a television set and biology lessons. So we spent a lot of time on the wall.
These conversations were crucial to Shoemaker's survival, and they became a focus of Dennis Charney's research.
Social support is a key factor in becoming a resilient individual. You can't do it alone. You need other people. I think the tap code experience of the POWs is among the most important lessons. And we use the phrase that everybody needs a tap code. Everybody needs a way of communicating with other people to establish friendships that are supportive, to establish relationships that provide you a guidepost as you get through tough times.
Charney also discovered that highly resilient people tended to share some other qualities as well. They tended to have strong religious or moral beliefs, strong role models, and a strong streak of optimism.
It was not an unrealistic optimism. They were able to accurately apprise themselves of what they were facing. So it wasn't denial. They knew that they had been traumatized or they were facing a very difficult situation. But they had an ability to be optimistic that somehow that they would prevail.
After 8 years of captivity, Bob Shoemaker was finally released, his spirit unbroken by the horrors he endured. The first thing he did was call his wife.
I wondered who this man was. I didn't know him very much. We had a very short courtship. Our baby was born just 5 weeks before Bob was shot down and captured. I remember this phone call saying, "Hi, honey," and that literally erased 8 years of time. It's hard to explain that, but that was the person I knew. And that was the person that returned home.
Shoemaker had done more than just survive. In his view, he had grown.
Well, I suppose one way of looking at 8 years of imprisonment is to say, hey, that's just wasted time. You know, I have to put that behind me. It's unfortunate. But paradoxically, you know, I gained something out of this 8 years of experience.
In the years after his release, Shoemaker became a rear admiral, a college professor, a devoted husband and father. And he turned the house that he'd so often imagined into a reality.
It was something in my soul I just had to get out, you know, and see the fulfillment. I wanted a house that had a lot of openness to it, and I think that was probably as a result of my being confined without windows or anything. So the house I designed has a lot of glass. I was deprived of freedom for such a long time. I think I really cherish freedom more than most people do now.
Bob, like almost all the other POWs that we interviewed and got to know very well, said that to the following question: if you could have eliminated the POW experience from your life, would you do so? In other words, you could have just wiped that out. It never happened. And Bob, like many of the others, said no, because I learned things about myself during that experience. And I learned tools, psychological tools, tools in which to handle my life that I probably could never learn in any other way. And so it stood me in good stead for the rest of my life.
My resilience has been slowly learning to trust that whatever path I take can be positive. You know, even the worst decisions I've made have had, you know, positive ramifications if I choose to learn from them.
Well, I want to make sure that people know that I'm happy that I had a messed up childhood, that I'm glad I was damaged, because it made me a better actor, it made me a better writer, maybe a better creator. So I thank my family for that. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Then I would have, but not now.
was always good at math. My dad worked in finance. When I was in high school, I took an economics class and we had to like pick stocks. Yeah, I just always liked it. Went to college, studied it there. My brother was on Wall Street at the time. He helped me get my first job. And yeah, 10 years later, well, here I am, unemployed in a chair.
Bill O'Connor was a bond salesman at Lehman Brothers when Wall Street began to collapse in the spring of 2008. He and his wife Stephanie had a new baby, a new apartment in New York City, and they knew they were in trouble.
A lot of people describe it that when you join a bank, there's like a bullet, and on that day that you join, they inscribe your name on it. And someday, if you stay there long enough, that bullet will be fired.
Bill saw a lot of his friends being laid off, and he worried about what would happen to him. But when the axe finally fell, Bill did something a bit unusual.
Steph was on maternity leave, and then she planned to have a sabbatical before going back to work. So she was planning on having 6 months. I said, you know, I don't think I want to just start pounding the pavement looking for a job. What do you think if we buy an RV? Which,
and I said, I think you're crazy. And his mom was living here, and she said, I think you're crazy.
yeah, wasn't a well-received idea at first. I found a very cheap Winnebago online. You know, spent the summer together as a family, driving around the country. We're just gonna break away for a little while.
Why would you buy an RV if you lost your job and had a new baby? Well, research on happiness suggests that Bill and Stephanie may have been spending their money wisely by investing in a shared experience rather than material goods.
It was great. You get up in the morning and you go out and have lunch by a lake, or you go swimming. It's just, you know, time together. There's just freedom. You can just be driving along and you see something and then you say, that looks interesting, let's stop there. All right, let's stop there. And, you know, we went and saw the six-legged cow in Kansas. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
I think it really turned out to be one of the best things we could have done for ourselves.
But no vacation lasts forever. And when Bill and Stephanie returned to New York, Bill's unemployment began to seem much less like an opportunity and much more like a problem.
Coming back to New York was not good. I was coming back to play Mr. Mom and look for a job that, you know, doesn't seem to be there. What time do you have to go to work for? You're just working in the office?
I'm working in the office.
With their vacation a rapidly vanishing memory, Bill found himself struggling to adjust to life as a stay-at-home father.
What else do I have to do this week?
It'd be great if you can get to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Just because we're pretty limited in what we have in the fridge.
Okay. Now we're gonna shop, bud. It's really worth $6 more, Maddie. Your mommy's using generic right now. This could cause a disagreement, but we're getting it. These look identical, friend. I think you're going generic. Congratulations. You just saved us $12. I hate, you know, expensive grocery stores, so, you know, I opt to go across to New Jersey to, you know, Pathmark or ShopRite or something. Did we get toilet paper? We didn't get toilet paper yet. Goodness. You have to reorganize. It's bizarre to have gone from a world where I put on my headset in the morning and, you know, I had 150 phone lines, and I'm kind of lost without that, without the dialogue, without the interaction. And then just the confusion of, where am I going? I don't know. I have no idea. Get you down. On your back. Smile. The challenging thing, it's a full-time job. I've opted for a full-time job. Maddie, what you doing? When you just want a moment, you can't have a moment, so that's exhausting. I never saw myself doing the job I'm doing right now. It's bizarre.
You could tell when he had a successful day, when he had a good deal. It was so fun for him. He loved what he did. When he lost his job, it seemed like he really lost part of his identity.
You question why me? How could he possibly pick me? I still send instant messages to the guy who I sat next to, like we're chit-chatting, every day, so. The relationships are still there, but it's like you got kicked off the train or something, and, you gotta watch that thing keep going down the tracks.
Bill's struggle isn't over yet, and there's no telling how long it will go on. For now, one thing is clear. Playing the role of Mr. Mom doesn't seem to suit him all that well. Being unemployed obviously makes us unhappy, but the reasons aren't entirely financial. When someone asks us who we are, we often tell them what we do, because work is more than a way to make money. It's a part of our identity. That's why when we lose our jobs, we lose a piece of ourselves. The same is true of illness. Being sick makes us unhappy, but the reasons are not entirely medical. Illness, like unemployment, can tear a hole in our identities and leave us wondering who we really are.
My hair was me. My hair was red, full, curly, shiny, long. So I was all hair. It had a presence, and I had a presence.
Michelle Gossett was a 51-year-old single mother when she learned that she had ovarian cancer.
Losing my hair was probably one of the most devastating things that happened to me with my cancer. I lost my hair in one day, and I thought that I lost my identity. I thought I lost my soul. I lost my strength. I actually have a different hairstyle almost every day. For instance, I'll wear my pink wig when I feel playful. My red hair with the roots, I think looks very natural, and I put that on to kind of even me out, but with a little edge. The brown ones, they more or less resemble a hairstyle that I would possibly adapt myself. And then I have little short sassy ones. And those are fun, just for a change. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes I'll get up and look at the wigs and why? I realize I still have cancer. So sometimes it doesn't really cut through that. I worry about my daughter. Natalie is absolutely the apple of my eye. She is my pride and joy. And Natalie and I have been through a lot together. I was a nurse, worked in critical care for a number of years.
Oh, it's so nice to see you.
And decided to go to anesthesia school. When I finished school, I had a promise of a wonderful job with a fabulous salary. I had a house on the water. My dreams were that Natalie and I could live a secure life in my future. And that didn't materialize. I was diagnosed 2 weeks after my graduation, and I'm on chemotherapy right now. My fears with my illness lie in that Natalie might not have her mother. And Natalie is as important to me as myself. Secrets to find inner peace. I'm using aromatherapy baths, aromatherapy around my home. I'm living and eating more organic food. I found that I've been reading a lot of self-help books lately, inspirational readings, inspirational writers, William Dyer, Marianne Williamson, Louise Hay, different authors. You can heal yourself type things.
And I think that's what we all want. We want to enjoy life.
And it's so pressing for me to try and find these because I feel I'm reaching a desperation to find the meaning of life.
Michelle is one of the thousands who attended Louise Hay's conference.
What I wanted to gain from going to the conference was keys, tricks, guidance.
The healing has begun. Life loves you.
As a trained nurse, she isn't quite ready to believe that cancer can be cured by aromatherapy, crystals, or positive thinking.
I'm not willing to give up my chemotherapy for alternative therapies because I've seen tragic outcomes from that. They said I'm just going to have a vegan diet and I'm going to think positively, and that's how I'm going to live out the rest of my life because this will cure me. And their cancer just metastasized to their brain, their bone, their lungs, and they were done. I'm not ready to take that chance.
When I put myself in your position, I think if somebody told me that the reason I have cancer is that I had the wrong thoughts, is there a part of you that thinks, give me a break?
I've thought about it because I said, okay, if it's dis-ease in my body somewhere and it manifests in my cancer, is it something from my childhood? Is it an anger? Is it someone I won't forgive? That could lead to, I would think, maybe a stomach ulcer. Would it lead to cancer, gynecological cancer? I don't know. I don't know about that.
Over the last 20 years, psychology professor John Norcross has directed a systematic study of the self-help industry, examining over 1,000 different books and programs.
We should be cheering about the proliferation of self-help. Approximately 75% of those who successfully changed a behavior or relationship have done so on their own without professional treatment. Self-help is the major pathway to how most of us grow. At the same time, there are inherent limitations to self-help, and not all the stuff out there is particularly good. A great book. And then the not-so-great book.
Norcross worries that what's advertised as expert advice, all on the same shelf,
Yes, right next to each other.
is often nothing more than untested opinion.
More than 95% of all self-help books are published without any scientific research attesting to their effectiveness or safety. And we estimate more than 99% of the internet self-help sites are launched without any scientific research attesting to their value.
So you're not just saying that some self-help is worthless, you're saying that some of it's positively dangerous.
Without any regulation and without scientific research, it's a buyer beware, and they're not sure what they're getting. I remember someone once comparing it to taking a 2-year-old toddler on a walk. As you're walking around, the toddler will occasionally pick up perhaps something of value, but mostly they're just picking up dirt and germs.
Self-help offers quick and easy solutions to complex problems. That's why it's so appealing and so profitable, from the corners of your local bookstore to the media capitals of the world. And yet, despite the proliferation of self-proclaimed experts, huge numbers of Americans get psychological advice from just one man. So who brought who?
It's a ritual. At 5 o'clock when he comes on in our areas, when the TV goes on, we see Dr. Phil, then have dinner. I like Dr. Phil. I like his whole family. You just feel like a part of it.
How long have you been watching Dr. Phil?
Well, when he was first on Oprah years ago, I wouldn't watch it on that day because I thought he was so mean. I was like, he's so hard on people. I mean, now I think that's what I like about him is that he's just very direct, and he's just the way that he does, like the, you know, the how's that working for you thing, you know, like if it's not working, stop doing it, you know, so I think I like that.
Like the type of family that I come from, you don't talk about your issues.
Right.
You just kind of, you know, push it under the rug and you don't repeat it because there's a lot of shame involved, you know. And so Dr. Phil, he brings it out.
It's almost like an accelerated way to fix your problem because you can beat around the bush for years, or you can just, you know, nip it in the bud right then.
And so your goal is to inflict pain.
It becomes my goal. That I don't think when we start fighting that's my goal, but it becomes my goal during the fight.
Are you proud of that?
No, I'm not.
Well, no, come on, be serious now. Don't give me that crap. Don't give me that crap. Don't give me that crap.
Dr. Phil is clearly a showman, but he's also a trained psychologist who respects scientific evidence.
I have a staff of over 300 people on this show, and many of them are researchers. And so they'll get into the psych abstracts, the medical abstracts, the sociological literature, and pull out, you know, those cutting edge overviews of everything that is at least the current understanding.
In my journey through the land of psychotherapy, looking into self-help, meeting therapists, going to self-help conferences, I found that there's huge distinctions to be made between different sources of help.
I think science informs practice. I think practice informs science. And if you don't have that exchange, I think you're going to miss some really important elements. But I'm not one of those people that thinks, you can think your way to illness or you can think your way to health. I think it's a multifaceted aspect.
Dr. Phil is in the helping business, but he's also in the entertainment business.
I'm going to tell them and you how to fight fair.
And he knows what it takes to keep ratings high.
Tell him that he sucks in bed. It's just one more way to hurt him.
In the end, a television show is no substitute for professional help.
A lot of couples that go through this kind of thing, which is why I'm talking to y'all. You're kind of teaching.
Something Dr. Phil appears to recognize.
A lot of people at home thinking, boy, my marriage isn't as bad as I thought it was.
People watch your show hoping to get answers, and they do. Some people watch your show hoping to get all the answers, and of course they don't.
Dan, I've never been under the misconception that we're doing 8-minute cures on the Dr. Phil show. What we do try and do is give people a wake-up call, to get themselves thinking, to get themselves considering. But this is just that. It's a beginning place. It should open a dialogue. It should open a thought process. It should cause them to maybe write down 5 questions to ask their therapist or their doctor the next time they go in and see them, or to discuss with their spouse that night. Then that's a great thing. If they take it beyond that, I think they're trying to do too much with the platform, too much with the venue. What do you want to see him do?
Dr. Phil is undoubtedly helping some people by reducing the stigma of therapy. But dealing with life's problems is hard work. Self-help programs often focus on changing how we think, but research suggests that it can be more effective to change how we behave. And one program in particular has a track record of doing just that.
I had a perfect childhood. 2 parents who loved me and loved me unconditionally. I lacked for nothing.
William Cope Moyers, son of veteran journalist Bill Moyers, found out at a young age that all the family support in the world wasn't enough.
There was something going on inside of me that wasn't satisfied by all of those external factors that would typically define happiness or success. I was struggling with this sense of purpose and this sense that I wasn't good enough. I discovered the solution to this hole in the soul. I could medicate it in a way that required me only to use mood and mind-altering substances. I didn't have to try so hard anymore to be happy. I didn't have to try so hard anymore to be perfect. I could just get high. Taking drugs and drinking probably became a problem from the moment I did them. And I'm convinced that once I took a drink or a drug, I was off to the races.
By the time he was in his 20s, Moyers' addiction had consumed his life.
My fix was crack cocaine, so I was using $1,000 a week. The money didn't matter. I mean, it did, but it didn't. I was doing anything to get high. My problem wasn't having money in my pocket. I had money in my pocket. My problem was finding my connection. My bottom was on the morning of October 12th of 1994, when in a full-blown relapse from my addiction, I was in a crack house in Atlanta, Georgia, and this simple question popped into my head: now what? And for the first time in my life, I did not have an answer. It's a simple question. Now what? Now what am I going to do? I didn't have the answer.
The key to his recovery? Moyers joined the world's best-known self-help program, Alcoholics Anonymous. AA is a free, peer-based support group that offers daily meetings in just about every city and town in the nation.
There's decades of research now investigating the effectiveness of 12-step groups, including AA, NA, and so forth. And the research is quite supportive. Regular participation is an incredibly positive factor. The key is that sense of validation, of universality, that we're all in this boat together.
I mean, in AA, we realize it's really pretty simple. This isn't rocket science. It's about togetherness. It's about we. It's about realizing that we don't have to go through life's highs and lows all by ourselves.
If I'm an alcoholic, I have to decide, am I going to drink? I can go to the bar where it would be harder for me. I can go to an AA meeting. I can seek out friends who will help me in my recovery. I can seek out friends who will ask me to go out for a beer.
Keith Humphreys, a psychiatry professor at Stanford University, has studied AA for over 15 years. He's identified social support, or what the folks in AA call fellowship, as being the key to its success.
In my career, I've studied a very broad range of treatments for addiction, and there are many different things that work, but none of them will fully supplant, I think, the power of a fellowship that can really become a part of a person's life for years and years and years and years. And AA has definitely figured that out.
I'm in that meeting with those people because they are exactly like I am. And so Joe, who I may know from 10 years ago, stands up and says, my name is Joe, and I'm coming back after a relapse. I got 6 days. I go, oh yeah, that's what this is all about. And then an old timer gets up and shares something on one of the steps, and he says, my name is Bob, and I've been sober for 40 years. And I say, ah yes, that's what this is all about.
AA create many, many opportunities for people to be helpful to others. Bring in the chairs and set up the coffee, but in most cases it's more involved than that, leading a meeting or sponsoring other people to help them through the recovery process. And what research has shown is that the people who sponsor other members, the people who hold their hand out and support new members in recovery, are more likely to stay sober themselves. So that's, I think, part of the genius of AA, to recognize that to get help, one also needs to give it away.
Moyers is now the Executive Director of Advocacy at Hazelden, a drug and alcohol treatment center that employs principles based on AA.
I used to always believe that when I'm on my deathbed, no, I'll probably get high one more time, just to go through it one more time. No, I want to die sober. There is no cure for my alcoholism. There is a solution, and the solution is recovery. Recovery includes going to meetings.